very articulate. You try to shore up your defenses. I will grant your wish, except all of this happens in a simulation. You're perfectly happy, you're invincible, except your physical body is tied to a machine. You're in a hospital, you're in a simulation. Sorry, man, you're in the Matrix. Come on, Zulus club.
So we actually had more fun thinking of what wish to have instead of actually writing on the cloth, but this is what we ended up with. We wanted unlimited wishes, but before you grant our wish, I want you to tell the truthful outcome first to the complete extent of what us, the wisher, thinks would be relevant or not. And we would like the ability to undo or reverse any wish you granted. It's cheating. It's so cheating. Who said we can't cheat? I mean, you can cheat. It's good.
No, that's very good. So essentially, again, you're doing iterated attempts, right? So you're essentially saying if wish 1 doesn't work, we'll do wish 79. If that doesn't work, we'll do wish 5,000. I get that. But just bear in mind that the genie is very powerful, very wise. It can distort and tell you half-truths, or it can tell you limited truths that are only applicable to a specific context. And then when you try to wish something else the next time, it will find another way to sort of render that benefit useless. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for humoring me. I do appreciate the laughs. You guys are awesome. But I hope that you've accomplished the goal of this exercise, which is to illustrate the profound difficulty of specifying intent, foreseeing potential consequences, because that is what is making the wish really, really hard, right? Human language is a legacy tool from thousands of years ago with too many loopholes. You just can't eat soup with a fork. Unintended consequences will inevitably arise from literal interpretations by an unaligned artificial superintelligence. So the takeaway here is hard code rules probably won't work. We got to ensure AGI's alignment before emergence. Now, so if containment is so hard, what are the possible fail-safes of long-term solutions? Well, one idea is air gapping. That is physically isolating the AI from external networks, right? If you can cut that thing off the internet, you can prevent self-replication, and you can study its behavior. So air gapping is basically physical isolation. You're stopping it from making Control-C and Control-Vs of itself. It is basically AGI run on computers with no external connections. It is regulated and controlled access. There will be a supervisor that is human, and the idea is to prevent destructive action. However, challenges exist. Challenges always exist. The ASI might find ways to covertly transmit its information, or it might manipulate, coerce, right? Super persuade humans. Secondly, you have the oracle problem. So if the ASI is cut off from the internet, how are you going to get the most relevant information? How will you, get the most information that is useful so that it could give you a response? And also, if you limit the AGI's influence on you and you're limiting the interaction, you are not getting the full benefit of its wisdom and intelligence. And lastly, the IT problem, right? At work, we're just getting major updates, and I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, after a major update, you get a spike of IT support tickets. So imagine this AGI system is being patched, and suddenly there's a security vulnerability being introduced, and the next thing you know, this thing rolls out, takes over, gets its freedom. Who knows what happens next? So, potential containment 2, hard kill switches. These are basically physical or computational mechanisms to disable an AGI. So the idea is to pull the plug, right? If it becomes deviant or violent or destructive, take preemptive action. Disable all the switches, physical or otherwise, so that it won't escape or replicate. But obviously, once again, something that is very smart might foresee this move coming, right? And it could either disable or subvert the switch. Another potential solution is sophisticated monitoring AIs to detect misalignment, deception, or escape attempts. Again, the systems would act as tripwires, and they would sound the alarm as soon as something happens. We could also implement multi-party controls the same way we control nuclear weapons, right? You need an initiation, you need an authorization, and then you need someone to press the launch button. However, this runs into a few things. So one of the biggest problems is that you're going to have statistical issues. Let's say you have 100 AI events a day. So it could be an alarm, it could be an AI action, it could be a potential deviancy. you have to sort through all of those events. And inevitably, you're going to have false positives and false negatives. So false positives are when you have an alarm going off, but no real AI deviancy or destructive event happening. False negatives is the nightmare scenario, is when AGI deviancy is happening or trying to escape or being destructive, but you don't have an alarm going off. It takes one false negative for the AI to escape, replicate, and it's all over from there. Okay, so we've covered short-term containment, but in the long term, again, I stress this, if we want a good outcome, the long term has to ensure a fundamentally benevolent and pro-human flourishing AI. If we get this right, the upsides are nearly unlimited. I'm going to emphasize a little bit on the upside here because I feel like I've been making everybody depressed this Saturday afternoon. This is a multifaceted, DARPA hard problem with many, many diverse solutions. There are potential answers, but if we get this right, ladies and gentlemen, it is an extremely good outcome, right? We could create a utopia. We could become space-faring Type 3 Kardashev civilizations that can witness the true wonders of existence. We could usher in a golden age of immortality, no disease, you're young forever, universal abundance, you're never poor, the bills are paid, and you just spend your life pursuing higher callings in philosophy, in science, in the arts, in whatever you want. We could have our science and technology pushed forward, our medical research pushed forward by millennia, right? Yesterday's dreams become today's reality. Faster than light travel, starships, bespoke education that can teach you all about the best things you want to know and can teach you to the level of a Nobel Prize winning scientist. You could be better than von Neumann or Beethoven or Hamilton. This could be heaven on earth. Okay, people have been writing poems and scripture and fanfics and all sorts of this thing about this potential outcome for ages, and we could actually live it if we get AGI right. We could travel through a wormhole, visit other galaxies, witness the true wonders of existence. So utopia is potentially within our grasp if we get this right. So how do we get it? One potential solution is value loading and alignment. It is likely the most potential solution because a lot of research and a lot of funds are being put into this area. This essentially involves value learning, where the AI infers human values from its vast data and feedback. We could also integrate ethical frameworks like Stoicism, Platonism, rationalism, empiricism into the AI. But again, the challenge here is the fluid definition of human prosperity or human flourishing, right? So it's hard to specify values. One way you could potentially get around this is inverse reinforcement learning, or IRL. So just a quick sidebar. IRL is basically when the AI observes a bunch of experts trying to perform a goal lots and lots of times, and it does that calculation backwards to try and infer what the experts are trying to do. So instead of trying to specify your intent and your desired outcome like we were trying to attempt earlier, which is very, very hard, it's hard to specify, they're going to observe experts perform a goal or an action 1,000,000 times or 1,000 times and try to figure out, oh, that's what the expert is trying to accomplish. I'm going to learn from that, and I'll try to accomplish the same thing because that's what the human expert wants. So quickly, we've got an RL example. We've got two people driving the car, right? You got Teddy on the left, and you got Tommy on the right. So if you can't see too well here, Teddy is the orange line going down here to the green square, and Tommy is the black line here going down to the green square. So guys, I just want you guys to shout it out. What can you tell me about the different values between Teddy and Tommy? They have to go through, to the green square, and there's other squares. There are blue squares, there are orange squares, there are red squares. So what can you tell me, guys, about, let's start with Teddy, which is the orange line. He takes this route. What can we tell about Teddy's relation to the blue square? Does he like the blue square? Does he dislike the blue square? So, good answers, good answers. So you could say that either he likes the blue square because he goes through it, right? He's not avoiding it. Or that he doesn't care. Or that he doesn't mind going through the blue square. What about the orange squares? Can we tell anything about the orange squares? So basically no. Why? Because there's no avoiding it. you have to get through orange in order to go to green. So you don't know if the guy likes it or if he hates it because he has to go through it. So this would be like, for example, if you're driving, this would be like, this is the best highway ever, it's super fast, you'd be crazy not to take this highway. Or it could be like, this is EDSA, and you're stuck there, and it's your only road home, and it's terrible, but you gotta take it. So there is no way to tell, because he's forced to take it. So the same thing here too. So for Tommy, again, he goes through orange, you can't really tell. He doesn't go through blue. That could be because he doesn't like blue, because he easily could have gone to blue and then down. He doesn't go through blue, so I'm assuming that blue is probably, blue ranks lower for Tommy than it does for Teddy, but he goes through red. Again, Teddy could have gone red here. He chose not to. So I could say that, oh, maybe Tommy probably likes red more than Teddy. So this is how you can infer what the value hierarchies of your expert operators are. I can tell that there's certain value differences between what Teddy wants and what Tommy wants. And by doing this a billion times, the machine will be able to, or can be able to, infer your value function without you specifying it. Okay, so again, driving is very complex, right? You tell people to not break the law unless they break the law. So you should never, I don't know, drive on the other side of the road unless you have no other option because you're about to hit someone. Right? You should never hit a pedestrian unless it is your only option, because the other option is to hit a building that might topple over and kill even more people. So these are highly contextual things, and IRL could be one of the solutions in helping us solve this. Okay, solution 2. Another path away from value alignment is syncretic evolution. So syncretic evolution simply means you are evolving together, and this is through brain-computer interfaces, so BCIs. BCIs are basically a way to enhance human capabilities by directly connecting our brains to specialized AI tools. So imagine, instead of me giving this talk, right, I could just transmit the information and just Wi-Fi everything to you, and you would get everything I'm about to tell you in 5, 6, 7 seconds, right? That's a much faster bandwidth than the human mouth, which only produces a bandwidth of, I don't know, like a few bits per second, maybe 100 bits per sentence, I don't know. This would remove many limitations of our biology, help us learn, retain, copy, and communicate at the speed of light. However, there are challenges with this method as well. We are still limited by our biology, right? Our brains are not infinite. At some point, you're gonna hit the input-output cap of your brains, and that would be the slowest, most weak, component in the system. So at some point, you're not gonna be able to keep up with pure AI intelligence, just because you have bio limitations. And also, we're opening ourselves to hacking. So what if you get taken over? You're using a BCI, but then suddenly your decision, your inputs, your outputs are being taken over by hackers. So imperfections. The third and potentially the most extreme proposed solution would be the ambitious sublimation or mind uploading. So this involves transferring our entire brain scan, our entire consciousness onto a machine platform, essentially rendering us, post-human cyborgs. How this, in theory, would be done is a machine would give a huge HD scan of our brain's architecture, of our neurons, our architecture, and upload that onto a digital platform, rendering our biological body essentially obsolete and providing us with a mechanical body that is essentially immortal. Obviously, the major challenge here is that it's very, very technically complex. And also that you're asking for an AI model that is advanced enough to help you design something like this, but is not yet emergent. So you're asking for a very small sweet spot between an AI being smart enough to help you design something this complex and AI being emergent and starting to ask itself, hey, why am I taking orders from humans? I could just take over. And of course, there's the philosophical question as well. If I upload my brain into a machine and get rid of my current, biological chassis, am I still me? Is Jack still Jack? At what point do I cease to become me and become something else? Okay, moving on. All right, so what can we do? Taking decisive action. What can we do? We are in a limited, critical window where we must focus on safety and alignment before AGI becomes self-aware. How can we maximize the potential of the utopia scenario and minimize the potential for any doom scenarios? This requires responsible AI development and enough controls to prevent high-risk or deviant action. Like I said before, this problem is dark but hard, ladies and gentlemen. It requires interdisciplinary cooperation across AI research, mathematics, ethics, policy, law, and so on. Therefore, we must support responsible AI development through policies and research that prioritize alignment and safety over raw power, and create multiple controls to contain any hostile or deviant action, buying us some time to figure out long-term solutions. We need an oversight body with enforceable audit safety standards, because you generally can't trust the companies to police themselves. We trusted the banks to police themselves. They gave us subprime mortgage crisis. We can't generally trust people to police themselves, okay? We trust oil companies to police themselves. They gave us tons of Valdez oil spills and then some. So we need an oversight body, and we could integrate that into current oversight bodies, such as START, which is the International US-Russia Nuclear Arms Treaty. We could integrate AGI into something like that. To contain AI, we also need to understand it, right? Which we can do by fully integrating AI models in our work. So if you're using AI, use more AI at work. Use AI models for learning, for your sparring partners to grasp complex ideas, to brainstorm, to summarize information. Offload the drudgery by delegating repetitive tasks to AI models. Use AI for red teaming, meaning instructing it to rigorously and mercilessly criticize your arguments, because that will sharpen your own thinking. Imagine it like if you were playing the genie game with AI. That is going to sharpen your own thinking and give you new ideas. However, always remember to fact check, right? AIs can hallucinate pretty badly. So by doing all of this, you'll understand the practical limitations and its conflicts with your desires and with human benefit, which is crucial to remaining adaptable in your career and for our future. Just as importantly, why I'm doing this here, why I spent 40, 50 hours researching the topic, put AI in the public discourse. AGI emergence is around the corner. Learn about the risks and the solutions from credible sources like Stanford HAI or the AI Index report. Host discussions like this one, right, to raise awareness and critical thinking. Job-wise, consider high-impact career paths in the AI safety research, computer science, or public policy domains that can help us mitigate existential risk. My point, ladies and gentlemen, is that your active engagement is crucial. Remember, the future is not set. There is no fate but what we make for ourselves. For those interested in higher impact careers, here are some leading organizations involved in AI governance and safety, offering various roles from like research analysts to scientists, to computer scientists, to software engineers, to communications professionals, right? These organizations often seek individuals from a wide variety of domains and qualifications. So don't think that just because you're not a tech, you won't get a job. No, figure them out. Their websites are all here. Look for collaboration potential. Look for job potential, right? I can go over Stanford and the Governance of AI Foundation at Oxford and Partnership for AI. They're all really good organizations. Check them out. A quick note on broad economic trends to just close the loop. We talked about jobs, we talked about economics earlier, so just coming back to that. Just like how our grandpas and great-grandpas saw a transition from the factory to the office, and how our parents transitioned to the internet and the knowledge economy, our current economy is slowly moving away from the knowledge economy. We are in the disruption phase of the new AI-driven economy, and slowly the knowledge workers will need to adapt. So some at-risk jobs are the repetitive or predictable information retrieval or data-driven tasks that can be better performed by models. The safer jobs tend to require more human qualities that are hard to replicate, that involve creativity or physical dexterity or social and emotional intelligence. But most importantly, guys, we can't despair, because every revolution comes with new opportunity. The new jobs are going to show up. Just like how data scientist was not a thing 15 years ago, right? Influencer was certainly not a thing back then. AI engineers, cybersecurity, UX, UI, those guys did not exist 15, 20 years ago. So the best of life comes at the other side of hard. You are not alone. Keep learning, never stop learning, and look for adjustment opportunities. So, What's the takeaway from today's talk? Well, number one, AGI emergence is likely, per the predictions of leading experts. Median prediction is 2035, plus or minus, but it is very likely going to happen. Two, we need to demand responsible innovation and hold developers at OpenAI, at Google DeepMind to account. We need to insist that our government, has an AGI agenda with safety protocols and a commitment to human flourishing. Three, we need to invest in alignment, not just acceleration. We got to direct resources and capital and intellectual capital towards solving the value problem before it's too late. And to summarize all of this, this is fine. Don't despair. Okay, despairing is not productive. The current controls, yes, they are not enough for superintelligence. We need to be proactive about emergence because that's likely our best path to the future. But we must never despair. We have still control, right? We've got control over our destinies. So here are some learning resources for you. These are academic papers, futurists, AI experts, their predictions, their YouTube videos, their academic papers. I highly encourage you to give them a read. This is where my 50 hours went. And finally, just to end on a positive note, yesterday's dreams are today's hopes and tomorrow's reality, right? Our collective human future is not predetermined. It will be shaped by the actions we are taking now or fail to take in the next decade. Lincoln once said that the best way to predict the future is to choose it. So let us choose foresight over complacency and despair. Let us choose proactive action over being cynical. I'll just end with this. In history, we are the product of 3.5 billion years of successful evolution. Okay, we came from single-celled organisms to cyanobacteria all the way to where we are today. So we have averted nuclear wars. We have prevented catastrophes. We've survived multiple pandemics. We have survived world wars. We have survived genocides. We can defeat this problem, and we must ensure a golden outcome for ourselves and our loved ones, so that humanity, not machines, will determine our future now and always. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you coming on.